receives traditional rulers from South-South, promises to prioritize their well-being.
INEC chairman and IGP meet ahead of by- and rerun elections scheduled to hold February 3.
A handful of polling units can severely be disrupted by acts of thuggery, knowing fully well that these few locations will determine the outcome of the election.
Federal government launches Global Fund 2024 to 2026, grant of $933 million for HIV and AIDS, tuberculosis and malaria.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we shall examine education for sustainable peace and development.
Several scholars allude to the essentiality of education, with some inferring an educated mind as one of the most valuable resources to have in life. For others, it is a reminder of the positive dominant effect education, especially a good one, could have on many aspects of one's life.
Unfortunately, the recurring decimal in sub-Saharan Africa rarely amplifies, in very frightening terms, the violation of right to education, where, for instance, an estimated 62 million account for the 258 million out-of-school children worldwide.
Quite certainly, Claire, although the true state of out-of-school children in Nigeria is still controversial, the staggering figures seem quite challenging, as Nigeria is set to account for 12.4% of the out-of-school children between the ages of 6 and 18 years.
All right, let's cite UNESCO's statistics, which of course is applicable to the age bracket. And that could mean that more than 20 million children are affected. And in 2023, the Universal Basic Education Commission, that's UBEC, reveals that Nigeria needs an additional 20,000 schools and over 900,000 classrooms to absorb the growing number of out-of-school children in our country.
The northern region is worse hit by the malaise. Statistics reveal 7.6 million girls in Nigeria are deprived of the opportunity to education, hence increasing adolescent fertility rate. Kebbi, Zamfara, Kano and Bayelsa are among the states with highest number of out-of-school children.
And the commitment towards, addressing this issue manifest in the declaration of achieving universal basic education as enshrined in the UBE Act of 2004. But above all, it is a wake-up call for everyone, federal government, caregivers, of course governments at all levels, and stakeholders who are becoming rather sensitive to laying education as a foundation for more peaceful and sustainable societies. Demola.
You are right, Claire. With such disparity in assessing education, especially for the girls, how then can engendering inclusivity and enhanced behavioral values be encouraged? Today, we focus on education for sustainable peace and development against the background of the International Day of Education.
Absolutely, absolutely. And like the opening remarks indicated, the domino effect of education is all around, and a major target indicator for the FDG, that the Sustainable Development Goal 4, is the progressive reduction of out-of-school children. But beyond this are issues of access to quality education, inequality in education, lack of trained teachers, that's skilled and qualified teachers, shortage of personnel, insufficient teaching tools. There's so many things that needs to be addressed before we can, of course, say it's uhuru in the education sector. So it's on this note, I welcome you once again to Good Morning Nigeria this Wednesday, and I'd like to warmly welcome back Demola to the set, who is looking like a new groom this morning.
Thank you, Claire. It's good to be back.
You must have had a good rest.
Fantastic one. Thank you.
Welcome back. We're glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you, Claire. Good morning, and good morning, Nigeria. I am Ademola Adeoye. As usual, we'll be taking highlights of the morning news in a moment. Some business news and newspaper review for now. Dennis Adegunloye takes the news. Hello, Dennis.
Yes, good morning and welcome back at Demola, and good morning, Claire. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the morning news. Nigeria is now more than ever pressing for membership of the world's largest economic group, the G20, as well as representation of the continent in the United Nations Security Council. These were parts of the bilateral and multilateral discussions as President Bola Tinubu received U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken at the State House.
By some accounts, as many as 60% of the resolutions passed by the UN Security Council in one way or the other related to Africa. So Africa needs to be represented.
The United States is committed to strengthening genuine partnerships on the continent to work to solve shared challenges and also to deliver on the promise and the fundamental aspirations of our peoples.
Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has assured traditional rulers in the South-South geopolitical zone that his administration is committed to addressing their concerns over development and environmental degradation. President Tinubu gave the assurance while addressing members of the South-South Monarchs Forum who visited him at the State House.
This kind of dialogue is necessary because these are the people that are helping me to maintain peace in the South-South region. The moment they are peace with me, I think there will be peace, there will be more oil, more money for Nigeria.
From the East-West Road to revamping of the ports to the looking into the issue of security.
The Ministry of Information and National Orientation has received a draft report on National Values Charter designed to promote citizens' aspirations to nationalism. The Minister, Mohammed Idris, says this is a step towards national reorientation.
Indeed, that is why when this committee was being set up, you see young people also involved. Now the idea is that we don't just leave it to the elderly or to the older ones to decide the future. After all, the future belongs to the young ones.
9 by-elections and 39 rerun elections will hold in 26 states on February 3rd, and the chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, and the Inspector General of Police, Kayode Oyedekin, have promised to use them as a litmus test for the Edo and Ondo governorship elections coming up later this year. This was during an interagency consultative meeting on election security held in Abuja.
A run election conducted in one polling unit or a handful of polling units can severely be disrupted by acts of thuggery, knowing fully well that these few locations will determine the outcome of the election.
We have conducted threat analysis in all the 26 states where election is going to take place, and we are going to deploy according to the threat assessment.
The federal government has launched the Global Fund Grant of 2024 to 2026, a $143 million intervention for HIV/AIDS, tuberculosis and malaria, with the target of improving Nigeria's health system. Coordinating Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Mohammed Ali gave assurance of Nigeria's commitment to achieving the grant's goals through transparency and accountability.
To mention that Nigeria has contributed more than $50 million to the Global Fund since 2001, demonstrating strong global solidarity.
From our part, we will oversee this and to have a robust framework for tracking the resources of governmental and non-governmental actors in a transparent manner.
That concludes the news. Claire and Ademola will be back for the rest of the program after this break. Good morning.
All right, welcome back to the program. It's Good Morning Nigeria, and it's live on the network service of the NTA. Let's join Comfort Amodu with business news for now.
Nigeria is a net exporter of various goods and services, including the export of rubber, a vital commodity estimated to increase to more than $68.5 billion by 2026, towards increasing the country's production of rubber and export to the global market. The Minister of Industry, Trade and Investment is galvanizing private sector support amid plans for a production roadmap. Dr. Doris Uzoka-Aniti reiterated the need to develop the value chain of the rubber industry during an interface with a stakeholder delegation led by the Secretary General of the International Rubber Study Group from Singapore.
Nigeria has potential across 80 states in Nigeria to grow natural rubber.
Produce a national rubber policy and strategy for 10 years. This will give the nation a focus and direction and attract investors into our business space.
We want to see that strategic plan that you've initiated take place and take hold in Nigeria. We are in dire need of reinvestment and investment in the rubber industry and the entire value chain.
In the capital market, stocks traded higher, with investors gaining 1.56 trillion naira as NGX or share index increased by 2.97%, and its year-to-date currently at 31.89%. Here are the closing figures after the trading session on Tuesday. With business news, Comfort and Modu.
Thank you, Comfort, for the business news. Newspaper review is next on Good Morning Nigeria. Stay with us.
All right, let's welcome Chooks the boy. Chukwudi, good morning. Welcome to Newspaper Review.
Good morning, Claire. How are you today?
Very well, thank God.
Demo!
Yeah,
I was almost starting a demonstration because Demo, vanished from the scene. Welcome back.
Yo, thank you very much.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you. Happy New Year to you.
Same to you, my brother.
Okay.
Today is
24th.
Anyway, let's quickly get on with leadership. Leadership has so many stories on the front page, and of course the lead story is on insecurity, and it says probe terrorism financing now. Northern elders and CSOs tell Tinubu. It's on page 4, comes with 1, 2, 3 riders now. Demand release of report on General Tahiru's death. Insists aircraft's black box has details of killing, and army keeps mum on General Ali Kefi's allegation. That's the lead story. Many feared killed in fresh Plateau attack. It's on page 7, and other stories on the front page also includes oil workers reject Shell's $2.4 billion asset sale on page 24. Poor power generation linked to gas supply hiccup, page 23. FCTA profiles kidnapping hotspots, and in sports, AFCON, Cameroon faced Nigeria in last 16 after beating Gambia 3-2. After beating the Gambia 3-2, it's on page 30. And of course, just above the nameplate, residents differ on planned review of Kano Emirates. And on the other side, we paid 55 million naira to free our Kadria sisters. That's according to the family. I'll quickly move on to Daily Trust newspaper. And Daily Trust again is reporting on the incident in Plateau. 8 killed as fresh violence erupts in Plateau. Mosques, churches, houses burned. 24-hour curfew imposed in Mango LGA with deployed troops. That's according to the military. And on the front page there, you see victims of Mango Crisis, some of them receiving treatment at a hospital. And we say, when will this end? Sacked PDP lawmaker storm Plateau Assembly. APC members stay away. And trending at the bottom of the paper, bandits kill man, kidnap 16 family members in Niger. Again, bandits kill man, kidnap 16 family members in Niger. Despite receiving 1.88 trillion naira in 2 years, 9 oil-producing states' debts skyrocket. Again, it's on page 19. And patients groan amid health worker strike in the FCT. Just again below the nameplate, security agents arrest Fulani leader Budejo, and Tinubu receives blinking 6 U.S. support for G20 membership. Details of that on page 7. And police arrest gun runner with ammunition in Kaduna. Now, those are the front page stories from Daily Trust and the leadership.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Claire. I have the Vanguard newspaper, and above the nameplate, we have $20 billion Dangote refinery marketers proposed payment in Naira. Rivers elders kick as court shuns suit against Tinubu's peace pact. Implement NSAS report. U.S. tells federal government. The story is on page 6. EFCC arraigns Obiano over alleged 4 billion naira fraud today. That story can be found on page 13. And below the name plate, we have standoff in Plateau as police battle 16 sacked PDP lawmakers. We won't accept 16 PDP members into plenary. Speaker ask parties to wait for interpretation of judgment. Governor Bufuan declares 24-hour curfew in Mango. Chooks, I mean, what's your thought on that, the Plateau crisis?
Well, the Plateau crisis still remains the Plateau crisis. Why do I say this? Till we tackle the root causes of the Plateau crisis, it will keep on being a recurring decimal. Fatal recurring decimal. And of course, it's an ill wind that blows nobody any good. I was in Jos. I saw some of what was happening in Jos. Some people come give it one coloration, some come give it another coloration, and all that. At the end of the day, the issues that are really at the heart of the Plateau crisis must be addressed, so that everyone would eventually, when you get to Plateau and you hear this native settler argument and all that, you begin to say, hey, Nigerians, you need to collapse certain things so that natives will get to know that a place is actually more developed by people you call strangers. Yeah. Then the so-called settlers will get to know that there's a saying in Igbo, he who visits another must not do the native in. It's a symbiotic relationship. We have to address that. Then we all march forward together.
I'm even just two things I want to raise on that. Yes. Plateau. One, like Demola said earlier, it could be lawlessness. Now, what is the cause of this? That's one. Two, this is the same local government area that was attacked, where we had the same similar incident. It is expected that security would be high there. So why is it that this incident is happening again? And from reports here, more than 15 houses.
The communities themselves, they have to wake up, and they are responsible for it.
It goes back to, it is the thoughts of the so-called natives and the so-called settlers, how they decide that we're all human beings that deserve goodness under the sun. It is what they do that would eventually... If you put 1 million policemen in a community of 200 people who do not want peace, that's nothing.
In the circumstance where
let them agree to live together.
In the circumstance where that has become impossible, it behoves the security agencies to maintain the peace, to compel people. You understand? No, but that is the essence
what
of
you're saying is
security.
That it behoves them to coerce the peace.
Coerce
peace
coerce
does
peace.
not last.
No, coerce peace until you know the issues. Yes, until peace can be maintained.
All right.
You know, without being coerced.
Let's look at the
stopgap measure.
This kidnapping in the FCT. Wike asked Abuja councils to strengthen vigilance teams, procures more vehicles. I hope that can solve that problem.
What we discussed yesterday really was the very important move of procuring equipment that will help us know where Demola is calling from, wherever he is, instead of telling us he's within this community. Wike says, look, we're going to get equipment. They actually went to the president for direct approval that will tell us where that call is being made from. It's a giant leap. Of course, procuring vehicles, some other gadgets to help the police has always been the tradition of state chief executives. So that is not quite new. But again, because it is Wike, you're going to see more profundity in terms of pursuing that.
Just before we go to Kode, I'm told we have just a minute to round up. I think the front page story, that's the headline story on leadership, it's quite apt. Pro-terrorism financing. And on Good Morning Nigeria yesterday, we did talk about investigating how, terrorism fund is utilized, is invested. Now, if you see, the Al-Qadria family is saying they paid 55 million naira to free, the sisters. Now, that's huge. That's huge.
It's huge amount.
It's huge amount of money.
The security people should be able to trace such.
It's okay. Yes, it's their discretion to disclose what they paid and all that. But I would say, thank God these sisters are back. Because the back and forth between the army and the police over whether they were rescued and all that, it's not something we want to go into. So let the family also keep to themselves some of the things that happened.
I'm not even talking about. I'm just citing the amount.
The amount
the need
is huge.
Yes, and the need to
be
investigate,
to track.
Yes, actually, very good criminal investigators will tell you that the way you get to it is by following the money. Follow the money. So what you're saying is quite in order. The will to do certain things would also matter in terms of effort to push into doing that thing is very important. I don't want to believe that Nigeria in this century does not have access to all the modern things that has now helped, track things in the world. Technology grows. But the point is, how much are we growing with it? The minister of the FCT just said, we're getting equipment that will help us locate who's ever making that evil call of guarded to kidnap. Where have we been? You ask. Are we saying that this has not been there?
Chukwudi, I don't want to give you the red flag, but just before
you're always kicking me out of the studio. I'm used to that.
Just before we go, Cameroon and Nigeria, Demola.
It's going to be a tough one, actually.
Those are two giants in the sun.
Who is the giants?
Oh no, giants in the sun, that doesn't make them comfortable. It is actually sleeping giants.
It's going to be a
so
tough
it's going
one.
to be a meeting of sleeping giants. I don't know whether any
is Nigeria actually sleeping?
Fly?
Not Nigeria. The super Eagles.
No, and of course they are representing us.
Yesterday, I'm a journalist, and sometimes we try not to pretend because we are not supposed to pretend. Nigeria crawled into the group of 16. They crawled.
and you're saying that they're not really giants. I don't know what you're talking about.
Let's hope the tactics will be
we need to
different.
reform our football.
Let's hope the tactics against Cameroon will be different.
Because
I saw football. I saw the Cabo Verde play. I saw the Egyptians play. You saw the Angolans play.
They are more zealous and fleet-footed.
Yes.
The other guys run sometimes like pap we don't sport.
When last did you play football?
They call me Lukito on the field of play. Come to think
all right,
of it.
Lukito.
Let's draw the curtain now. Let's draw the curtain.
We're not waiting to see you play.
So that's all we can take on newspaper review this morning. Stay with us. Yeah, welcome back. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria, coming to you live on the network service of the NTA. As a prompt for our conversation this morning on education for sustainable peace and development, let's take this background report by Abdusalam Jubril.
According to a popular proverb, education is the passport to the future. For tomorrow belongs to those who prepare for it today. This certainly underscores the importance of education as it helps in developing critical skills like decision-making, mental agility, problem-solving, and logical thinking. In Nigeria, some experts note that education, whether in its formal, that is, within the four walls of a school, or informal, which is outside classroom settings, is that which dispels ignorance and enlightens people. They insist that successive administrations recognize the importance of education and fashion out programs such as student loan schemes and school feeding programs, among others. They stress these are efforts to bring children and young people into the classroom, keeping them there sufficiently enough to get basic education, which would make their lives as young people good and their adulthood a lot better. Available data from the World Bank reveals that in Nigeria, by November 2022, the country's literacy rate was 62%. 68% of the youths in 2020 had received secondary education, and around 15% of them had completed primary education, while 17% pursued higher studies after secondary education. According to UNICEF, 1 in every 5 of the world's out-of-school children is in Nigeria. Even though primary education is officially free and compulsory, about 10.5 million of the country's children aged 5 to 14 years are not in school. Some analysts have also pointed out that successive budgetary allocation to education has not been encouraging. For instance, in 2016, education got 7.9% of the budget. This was reduced to 6.1% in 2017, before it was increased to 7.1% in 2018. Allocation to the sector nosedived to 6.5% in 2020, while it got 5.7% and 5.4% in 2021 and 2022, respectively. In the current 2024 budget, education got 6.39%, which is far below the 15% recommendation by UNESCO. Other analysts assert that there is a deficit of resources and infrastructure for the country's educational needs. As Nigeria joins the rest of the world in commemorating the International Day of Education, how can these challenges in the educational sector be addressed in line with global best practices and foster sustainable peace and development in the country? Guest on Good Morning Nigeria will be speaking to these and more shortly.
All right, many thanks to you, Abdul Salam Jubril, for the background report, bringing us to our conversation segment. And let me begin the introductions. We have the Honorable Minister of State for Education, Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sununu, and he joins us live here in the studio for the first time this year. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, Nigeria.
And compliment of the season too.
Thank you.
We also have right with us here in the studio Victor Ikiriko, who is the Executive Director, Green Stride Development Initiative. It's also right here with us live in the studio. Compliment of the season to you.
Same to you. Thank you for having me.
Also in the studio with us this morning is Abdullahi Saleh, FCT focal person and board member of Civil Society Action Coalition Forum for Education for All, and a political economy analyst. Mr. Abdullahi Saleh, you're welcome to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Now let's kickstart the discussion with the Honorable Minister. With the first question, how significant is the International Day of Education to the theme, Learning for Lasting Peace?
Well, thank you very much for inviting me to this program. And also let me use the opportunity to thank Nigerian Television Authority for your open door policy in educating Nigerians. I remember when I was in the House of Representatives, most especially during COVID-19 era, I cannot count the number of times I've been in your studio. Virtually, I have been against almost on a weekly basis. And the pattern has also continued up to now. Your effort in educating Nigerians is a commendable one, and I do hope that you continue to do that. And the confidence Nigerians have on you will also continue to grow. Well, education is a very important focal point as far as development globally is concerned. And therefore, celebrating it on a day is very important. Before we can look at the aspect, let's see why is it that days are chosen by international community. Usually days are chosen to see how you can attract global attention to particular problems so as to mobilize human material resources to address such a global concern. Or you can also have a day to celebrate success that you have so far achieved so that it will be sustained over a period of time. So on education also, celebrating a day is very, very important generally, because it's now bringing education to the front burner of discussion, and everybody will set a day to see so far what are our burden, how do we address such burden, and where are we right now, and how do we go forward. And that's the essence. And now if you look at the issue of the team, that is very specific, learning for lasting peace. It's also another important issue. When you look at globally, as of today now, war, acrimonies are many. It's a global phenomenon, with a lot of people being displaced and making indices of education so difficult to manage and also to assess improvement. And when you look at that, is at global level, you can see a lot of this. And apart from that, there are a lot of hate speeches that are ongoing, with people lacking understanding and easily motivated to act otherwise. When you come to Nigeria and you try to localize it here, you also find that Nigeria is not exception to that global challenges of peace. We have seen a lot of insurgency right from the Boko Haram, bandit, regional agitations, and a lot of people clamoring. And if you allow that to continue, not only at local level but even internationally, education is going to suffer much. And then the thinking of the United Nations General Assembly is to see how can we leverage on education to create understanding, to allow people to have access to talk, so that they can understand and come to table to discuss issues and iron them out amicably, to allow for international development, for local development, and create more understanding, and also give it a room for education to further flourish. Because without peace, naturally you cannot. As we are now working to see how we can improve on education, you can have all the natural structures you have, all the beautiful buildings, but overnight bandits will come and displace everybody. And what was in internal migration, inability to control people, outbreak of diseases in the new camp we are going to have, and more or less worsening the out of school children status of the country was. And it's in that regard that also Nigerians say, okay, let us also see how we can celebrate. And I must also thank the Nigerian Television Authority for giving us this opportunity. As soon as I finish with you from 9 a.m. also to 10 a.m., I'm also going to another channel of the NTA to further discuss how education can ensure or give us an enduring, lasting peace that will allow us to develop this.
So I think the theme for this year is very, very apt, if you ask me. Again, considering, the circumstances globally. But again, education is considered, as a compass to attain this sustainable peace. It is the compass that will lead us to it. And that's why UNESCO normally would advocate that, look, if what countries are investing in people, they should prioritize education. Within this context, do you think that, we should also be celebrating, or why should we be part of this celebration?
Yes, we have a lot of reason to celebrate. One of the reasons I've mentioned is to see how we can look at our body. That's a celebration. Now, when you look at that,
within the context of
education,
within the context of education, and I know as a country we should celebrate, but if you look at the context of education, investing in people and prioritizing education.
Yes, that's what I'm coming to.
Do we have things that we should be celebrating?
Yes, we have to celebrate. You see, even celebrating life itself is also celebrating. Unless we're here, now we are looking, let's look at the team. If we celebrate, we are trying to see what are the problems that has to do with the team. Right now, it doesn't mean, it's not, I said you can use a burden to address burden. It's part of celebration. Yes, we agree we have challenges. Now, in our celebration in Nigeria is now, how can we now refocus the educational implementation in the country to achieve lasting peace? You understand? So we have to celebrate that. For example, there are a lot of education, regional and others. Some of them are misunderstanding of day-to-day running of government. And the only way you can do is through education that you can educate people. No, do you know that, look, what you are thinking that this is responsible for that isn't like that? Okay, people will violate the law because they are punished. Agitation will come from their own people that they are being isolated. Not minding that the key factor there is that you broke the law. And if you do that, there is a consequences. Now the ability to people to understand that, look, when you do something, there is consequences, and so do not do it. Or if one is to face the consequences, you shouldn't bring biases, religious, regional, gender, or what have you. That is a celebration. And we have to understand that. It's only when we understand that we now say, okay, if I am in any way punished for what I have done, it's not because I'm a Hausa man or I'm from Kebbi State, but because I have touched the rule. And there must be a consequences for touching that rule negatively.
And my question really is just is within the scope of education in terms of how well has the educational structure been able to. Yes,
that's what I'm telling you. I said that's what I said. I wanted to address that issue in that angle, considering where we are. The educational component of it. Now, listen now. Yes, we cannot say we are where we want, and we cannot say we have reached where we want, near where we want to reach. You understand? We all agree that we have challenges. And these challenges was even known before now. If you look at the ministry, we have education for change with the administrative strategic plan that addresses 2018 to 2022. And it will look at a wide range of challenges from infrastructure, teacher training, quality, access, funding, and many others. And that life sum of that has gone. We have achieved some development generally, but we cannot say it's tangible enough to say we are where we are. And you see, this is a regime that is looking at it critically without changing or camouflaging. Okay. Mr. President agreed there is problems in education. It's not everybody, and he has said so. And he came up with 8-point agenda and made education as a special focus area with so many thematic areas that we need to address. Okay. And those thematic education, look at the out-of-school children, which I know we are going to discuss, which is a major issue globally. And if you want to reduce the global burden of out-of-school children, if you neglect Nigerian out-of-school children, you will not have any impact.
I know this is captured in your 2020 roadmap.
Yes.
It's part of what you are, and I know you also had some thematic areas and indicators.
Yes, we are coming to that.
Yes, so just brief us briefly.
Okay, when you look at the out-of-school children as a thematic area, you see we have buried data, depending from where you are coming. And as scientists, we have to use data to address issues. When you neglect data, you are definitely going to have it wrong in your planning. Though I must agree, and every Nigerians know, especially those in academics and even those in human rights, that data in Nigeria always have a question mark because of our record keepings and our ability to tinker with certain indices to favor what we want. But generally, let's say, for us, by the basic universal basic commission, education commission says we have up to 10.6 out-of-school children, million out-of-school children. But this is also when you look at it generally. But if you look at the UNESCO that have holistic approach, it's giving a value of over 20 million out-of-school children. All this, whether it's 10 million or it's 20 million, depending on where you are looking at it, is still not acceptable for a country like Nigeria. Many reasons make it not acceptable. Human resources we have, financial resources we have, but the issue might likely be major issue, political will and leadership challenges. So it's not acceptable. So if you look at the one of the focus area in education in the 8-point agenda of Mr. President is reduction of out-of-school children. Okay. And then as a ministry, we also came out to develop the roadmap, education for renewed hope, roadmap for education sector 2024 to 2027. And that is a holistic approach on how we are going to address issues of challenges in the education. And we now look at the out-of-school children as a major thematic area. And we have agreed and say, okay, what are the problems? What are the way forward? The problems are, there are so many reasons that students will go out of children. Some are direct, while others are compounding factors. Some of the direct you have to do with illiteracy, you have also to do with poverty, you also have to do with internal migration, and then compounding factors. Insecurity is a major issue. That today you have children today and they will be displaced. Now, how do we this and there? It's also major component of it, Almajiri issue. So we now look at it as a thematic area. What are the vehicles that are we going to use to address the issue of out-of-school children? And that has brought us to basic areas that we have as a parastatal under the ministry. And one of them is the Mass Literacy and Adult Education Agency, because we have component of adult. Though they have started school, they have reached an adult, they have gone beyond school attending age by their distance. So you have to give them a special focus. Okay. They say, okay, let's take them separately and empower the agency to do the needful of educating them. And this has been associated with need of a lot of infrastructure. And we have agreed over time, many adult centers will emerge. And we have so far continued with our advocacy to various states, because we must get the buy-in of the state, because most of the teachers are going to come from the local government. Now we also look at the issue of National Commission for Almajiri and Out-of-School Children Education, which is also a new agency under the Ministry of Education that was assented. The act was assented by the on the last few days of President Buhari's regime. And what is the focus? The focus is to address the issue of Almajiri. You see, if you say you want to return to school out of the children from school, you have to address the issue of Almajiri, because they are a large chunk of component of that. And that's why there is that commission. Okay. And then how do we try to do that? Is to see how we can integrate basic education into Almajiri schools. Okay. So that they can also have the this. We also look at the universal basic education, which is also a major component of it. And then we also look at the National Commission for Nomadic Education, which is also going to address the issue of nomadic education using radio, using many access that we can reach out to them so that they can also be educated. Okay. And all this has also to be with funding, which is a major issue. And then we also look at it. The funding is, we have a lot of issues at this. And then if you also try to do all this, you can never get it right when you refuse to address the issue of curriculum. Because the
okay,
agree.
we're coming to the issue.
Okay, you are coming. Okay,
yeah. But from what you have said, the role of education, you have said, is to make the future safer and better place for the present and future generations. And also, education is not only about gaining knowledge, but about the subject, creating harmony, making the system harmonious for all. Now, my question will be, because the disparity between the North and the South concerning education is so glaring. The North is so disadvantaged. So my question is, how can the government improve access to education for children, especially in the North, and what policies are needed to address the educational disparities between these regions?
Well, thank you very much, and this is a very important question that will also have to do with the theme of this year's International Education Day.
Yeah.
Because you have to realize that there's really a disparity.
Yeah.
Now, when there is issue of disparity and we agree holistically, then education that will serve as a vehicle for others to show understanding that you have to prioritize without necessarily saying you are showing others, because you want the country to move in linear form so that we can be at all the same level. Though it may be difficult, but you want also correct the disadvantage of the northern part of the country that you say. Quite all right, we have to use data. If you look at the literacy level in Nigeria, as at today, by the UNESCO, is around 63%. But why the point now becomes serious issue is when you look at the regional distribution of literacy rate. You find some state in the western part of the country and eastern part of the country, like Imo, with almost 96% of literacy rate. Lagos around 95 point something. But when you move now to the northern part, if you come to state like Yobe, KB, you see some of them even going below 30%. Now, when you see this, you have data. The next thing that comes is budgeting. That has to do with allocation of resources. And that's why you find that much is given to education. And then in terms of ministry, there are many policies that have come up to address that. Working with a lot of non-governmental organizations and many other NGOs like this, there are so many also working, assisting us to work. But at the policy, you look at we have an issue, let's say the BESDA. BESDA is a better education service delivery for all. If you look at the state that are enjoying BESDA, mostly are in the northern part of the country. And the issue is to see how can we now reduce the burden. Though it's widening up, it's on record from that, is in that they have succeeded in returning back 5 million, I think it's 5 million if I can not forget, or if I can recall, to back to school. Now the BESDA has wound up. The issue is those 5 million that are returned to school, what percentage of them are they going to retain? So you understand, so you need also to have a policy that will assure that. Then other policy is the Agile, Adolescent Girl Initiative for Learning and Empowerment. Girl child education is a serious issue in Nigeria. If you look at the southern part of the country, where they have more or less, it's not a girl child, it's a boy child. Most especially in the eastern part of the country, most of them at the younger age, they want to go into entrepreneurship, and you see somebody who will be proud. And that's why it's over in the northern part. In the southern part of this, educated girl has more advantage and prosperity in terms of getting a rich person to marry her. You see somebody who has not gone to much in education, yes, but is proud to have a PhD holder as a wife. But if you come down to the northern part, in some certain state, you have to know that the higher you go, the lesser chances of prosperity and getting married is. It's just all these are decent. So you see, so that's why also the Agile came up to bring girl child back to school with incentives in terms of giving them access to what they needed in terms of their hygiene, like wash program, in terms of separating their toiletries from that of the men, and also giving a girl child incentives in terms of minor scholarship that they can use to empower themselves and develop, and also imparting skills to them. And these are some of the. Yes. There are many other programs. Which look at learn to read. Very leveraging on education, resources assistant in Nigeria to read, because it's observed that 1 out of 3 child in pre-primary school cannot read or write, even in early basic education, cannot read and write. Or if they read, They cannot comprehend simple instruction.
Dr. Sonono, thank you. We will look at the value and effectiveness of some of these initiatives, whether they are apt to really drive the challenges of the 21st century and meet our needs. But again, just before we escalate the conversation, I know you are pretty new, but 6-7 months on the saddle, you are not new to the system. You may be new to the office, but you are not new to the system. And one of your first visits was the National Library, of course, which you promised that work will start in earnest. Has work started? Has work resumed at that project? We all know that the National Library project has been there forever.
Yes, if you still, when you look at this, even some of our area of focus and thematic area in terms of our roadmap, you see that library education is one of the major area. And then when we came, National Library is not only it's a national edifice. Let's all agree with that. And it's not only there for you to go and read. It should serve as an archive of our day-to-day activities. It should be where you can go and get ready-made information and knowledge about our present, past, and even prediction of our future leaders. Because we should have a plan that I can go, okay, in Nigeria now in the next 10 years, how many scientists, atomic box size scientists do we want to have? It should also be in our archive so that people can now refer to it in planning. So, but we realize that the project has been there over years, and so much investment, and you need to go and see that building. If you describe it as one of the most qualitative building in Abuja, you cannot go wrong, because you are going to keep papers, and you are not going to allow it in an area whereby moisture will destroy it over time, or overheat will also destroy the papers. So much investment was done, and we thought that should also be one of our area that we want to focus. And this we have briefed Mr. President over years. But you see, if a problem lingers, I'm coming. If the problems has lingered, most especially contractual agreement, you cannot say, okay, go back to site now. Because the address you gave them, they are probably a gallon of a paint may be just 5 naira. And now with inflation and many other things have changed. You understand? And you will not rush in barrating the contract as at now without putting many things into consideration. Because while you are protecting the contractors, you must also protect government.
Okay.
You understand? So in doing that, we have to take our time to see how can you reconcile data. And that's where we are. Okay. And then we have already reached an understanding that the TED Fund, being a major sponsor, maintaining university education and higher education, must come into assistance to ensure that the project is completed, because that is also has to do with tertiary education. If it's done, our researchers, PhD at master's level, even undergraduate, can easily go there and
Is there any timeline when probably maybe work will resume?
We are hoping our distinct understanding, and our hope and prayer is that President Bola Ahmed will make another national record by commissioning the National Library before the end of his tenure.
Okay, thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Maybe for your thoughts so far, we have to move to other discussant here, and we have Victor Ikiriko, Executive Director, Green Strides Development Initiative. We're discussing the issue of education for peace and sustainable development. And we found out that access to quality education is low in Nigeria. What do you think is responsible for this, and what can be done to address this issue?
Excuse me.
Because when we talk about quality education, we're talking about all-round education now.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you, Honorable Minister, and thank you, NTA, for having us this morning. It's somewhat befuddling that as a people, as a nation, we agree that we have critical issues in that sector, and yet we have failed to make the right kind of investments in that sector. Okay. Now we look at the 2024 budget, and all we've allocated to that sector is 6.3% of the national budget. How do you reconcile that? Now, when you train a man to acquire skill and knowledge, but you fail to train the mind, then it's a wasted effort, because the critical element is missing in that wise. Now, how do we improve investment in the sector? We need to have what we call a sector audit. We need to audit the sector to find out what are the major issues as to why we have the decadence that we have. Now, that is on the one side. On the other side, parents and families need to understand that their survival and transformation of life critically depends on the kind of education that they have. So it is important for parents to understand that they hold themselves in responsibility to educate their wards and children. This is one area, because a lot of the times you find that parents say to you, oh, I am unable to send my child to school because I do not have the means. Now, we're a nation of approximately 200 million people.
More than that.
Now,
approximately.
Yeah, and only about 59% of that figure, adult population, can read and write. What it means is that we have about 41% who cannot read and write. You know what 41% of 200 is? 82 million. That is almost half our population cannot read and write. So how then do we grow the nation? So we should, consciously and deliberately challenge that narrative by making available investable funds in that critical sector of the economy. Now,
we also need to find out, which area of need, that we should target, because the 21st century needs are quite diverse.
There are two critical areas that we need to target in terms of developing our educational architecture. You're looking at infrastructure, you're looking at manpower development. These are the two critical areas that we must focus our investments. All other things will fall in place eventually, but these are the two critical elements that we must deal with. Now, I am aware that the National Association of CDOCs, for instance, are cataloging challenges of educational infrastructure in River State as a pilot project. And that is one step.
What does that mean?
What they are trying to do at the primary level is to, get a graphic picture of the level of infrastructural decay in the primary education sector, and then forward a report to the managers of, primary education, so that it gives them an insight into what the infrastructural challenge is, and then they begin to find ways of addressing them. Now, if at the ministry level we can also do the same, you would find that we would have basic information that the managers need to plan their investment. Because it's one thing to have the required resource for investment, and it's another thing to invest in the appropriate area.
Okay.
Because if for instance what you need is manpower development and you put your resources in infrastructure, you're wasting it. Because at the end of the day, you're not going to achieve anything. So these are the two critical areas that we need to look at: manpower development, infrastructural development. I was in Kubwa not long ago. I went to a primary school area and I saw a primary school without a roof, for instance. And kids were sitting in there, and there was a teacher teaching.
By the way, Kubwa is a suburb or an outskirts of Abuja.
That's correct.
Yes, so that we situate some people. Yes.
And there was a teacher teaching in that situation. How do we even expect any kind of learning to take place in that kind of environment? But if you want me to learn and understand, the basic comforts in the learning environment must be provided. So these are the things that we need to look at.
Okay.
It's important.
I think I agree with you, yes, but I just must say it's because of issue of time. You understand, we only have a basic and comprehensive data from nationwide study undertaken by Universal Basic Education Commission, and that's what is formed even in our district. For example, now infrastructure, definitely. If we had to go into roadmap, we have seen, we have even broken our roadmap to annual implementation strategy, which was done in Oyo. And you see, education is in the concurrent list. We must understand that. While the local government, state and federal government, everybody has his own. But you see, the responsibility as at now tend to be shifted more or less to the federal level. That's a major concern. And that's why if you look at over this since we came into office, we try to see how can we try to strike an alignment between national and subnational level. And I've been to advocacy meeting, my minister has also been to advocacy meeting to many states. And of recent, the governors are also coming forward to see how we can partner. Look at one basic education, the counter funding, the matching grant to be supplied by the state to match this thing. You see a state with 12 billion. All that is needed is to start government a line with UBEC, and all that is needed is for the state government to bring another 12 billion. Let me tell you, even the most popular state, Lagos and Kano, if you put 24 billion in education, under basic education, impact will be seen. You can address infrastructure, you can address issue of manpower, you can address any issue. So what we are now looking is alignment and agree to collaborate together.
Just a moment. Sorry, just a moment. We will come for you to tell us, because I know your thematic areas are 12 thematic areas, and these 12 thematic areas are based on the needs assessment. Yes, and you also have indicators and outcomes. Yes. So we will look at some of them within the time that is permitted. We have.
But is valid. Yes. Why I just have to come in is if you go to Kubwa and see a primary school, the next thing that somebody will say, President Tinubu has not done anything for education. Anyway, not knowing that primary school is not even our district.
Abdullahi,
and we have provided funds for that.
Yes.
So we have to make it.
How do you evaluate? What's your own evaluation of what's on ground now in the education sector? Last year, the theme for the celebration was, to invest in people, prioritize education, and we were part of that celebration. Exactly. So far, have we been able to prioritize, education? Have we invested in the people?
Thank you very much. It's good to be in the studio once again. I was here last year at the same time. Okay. And your question is apt. And I think for every Nigerian, I think we know the state of education in Nigeria. And I'm happy that the minister is bringing up a lot of, digging up many of these issues. I went around schools in the FCT 2 weeks ago to see the state of infrastructure as schools are resuming. And I tell you what, beyond around the city here, at least we see something better. We see buildings that are seemingly comfortable, to accommodate students. But then, just drive 5-10 minutes outside Abuja. I tell you what, you will, just as my brother rightly noted here, I was in Kuwa too. I doubt if we've done anything, let me put it that way. As an M&E expert, we usually don't use those terms. But I tell you what, in the past few years, education had not been given any attention. And I'm happy that he just mentioned it. I was with the Executive Secretary of...
No, I want to disagree with you. I didn't say education has not...
No. I'm coming to the point where governors have refused to access those funds from UBEC. Yes. I was with the Executive Secretary last year, and he did mention this. He lamented that even though the funds are there, state governors were not accessing them. And so I'm happy that we're also mentioning that we need to understand that education is not the sole responsibility of the federal government. Governors need to up their game.
It's a public responsibility.
It's a public responsibility. Governors need to up their game. Before now, it was with the local government, LGEDs, and we saw that not much was achieved. So the states have taken over. But what have the state governors done? You have a roadmap. I do not know if the governors are buying into your roadmap. For the federal government colleges which you are responsible for, not much again has been done. I've gone to quite a number of federal government colleges, and I've seen that the federal government has not even done much. And even with issues that the federal government needs to address, take for example the ASU issue. You're coming in new. We're watching what's happening, and we can see some positive responses. But then, talking of the previous government, which you're building your government on, not much has been done with regards to issues affecting the universities. But coming down to back to the issue of tertiary primary education, which is very key and important, I think we need to relook. The plan, how we work between the states and the federal government, so that we can achieve more. Otherwise, we will remain where we are. It's unfortunate that especially for the North, with all the interventions, the Agile, the BESDA, and even with the ambitious social investment programs, the technical, the outer school program, the at-risk children program, not much has been achieved. I've been on some of the committees and I've seen what has been done. I don't think that the plan will take us to the promised land. We really need to relook it, and I'm happy that you've said that your team is working on that, and I hope you bring in the civil society so that we can also bring in our perspective, because Sakefa has been a friend of the ministry, but lately I don't see we don't get invitations from you people, so I hope we will see
let me just see the roadmap document is meant to be a national document that is owned by everybody. While we have 7-man team that sat down and developed the document, we have to subject it to input from Bureau State after their work. We now went for another retreat in Uyo, where all the commissioners, chairman of UBEC of all the 36 states, though we were able to only got about 31 states in attendance, which is also a good number, that came and also made an input. Now, after the input were all adopted, and it was adopted with them, the state with their buying in. We now have to also go, all of us, with all the state, we went again back to Oyo, and then break down it into annually, so that what do we want to achieve this year? And then we have also developed a dashboard that we can monitor each state timely. And the ministry is also going to be monitored. We are celebrating World International Education Day today, and I'm here. It's still going to be ticked up. Today we have done an activity.
Yeah, for us in the society, we are marking the day. Yes. We're not celebrating the day.
We are marking. Okay, let's use you are marking the day. So we are marking the day. So so it's something that we want, and that's why I even came with a copy.
Yes, Honorable Minister, we have a lot of questions.
So Honorable Minister, they can own it and use it to serve as a track document, a monitoring.
If the Honorable Minister would allow us, we have a lot of questions for you. Yes. So if you just allow us so that we can take the questions.
I want you to actually speak on some of the issues that he raised about the issue of collaboration between the federal, the state, the local government, and the civil society.
Yes.
So what is the collaborated effort? How are you collaborating?
You see, if you look at even in the 8-point agenda of Mr. President, where we are trying to work much, inclusivity and tapping from relevant skills, which this tapping means that we can, and also collaboration is a major key point. And that's why when we came, the first thing we do is to listen to the operators of the ministry. We have interdepartmental this thing. What we realize in the ministry as a major issue is that we have a good policy, but there is disjointed implementation without internal collaboration. For example, basic education, secondary education may have a component, but if you ask the secondary education department, they may not even know much about what basic is this. So we have to ensure that we have that internal collaboration. And then we also look at our relationship with subnational level. And we find that really is still not encouraging. And that's why we say part of that collaboration is let us together develop a document that we can all own it as our own, that can also use it to track all of us. And that's what we went with this thing.
Yes.
And then as at now, many states are also coming with their own roadmap. I was in Bauchi when the governor also commissioned his own roadmap for education for Bauchi State.
Is it not possible to have a harmonized roadmap?
No, this is harmonized. And I took this is harmonized because the Bauchi commissioner and they were all together. And then I took this document also to them, which they now use down to see how they can track on it and then step down. And this has also been distributed in many states so that we can have harmonized this. Because if we don't have that alignment,
Honorable Minister, we are looking at education. So, and education does not, it's not just the primary, tier of education. Yes, we also have the secondary, we have the tertiary education. Yes. But again, the bulk of the challenges or the needs probably fall within the primary and secondary education. I just want us to quickly look at how we can, what plans there are to improve, the identified, gaps in the primary education. And we have talked about out of school children. How do we address and shore up, and ensure that we get back these children back to school. We also talked about the need for funding, state governments to participate and show public responsibility. The out of school, the school feeding program was one measure the previous administration adopted to attract students to ensure that students pupils go are back to school. Now that program is under the Ministry of Education. It has been moved from the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs to the Ministry of Education. Is the Ministry of Education, do you have the structure to implement this, and are you capable of implementing that?
Well, let us all agree that school feeding program is almost international program. It's not only limited to Nigeria. Many African also outside African countries are developing that, because it has been identified with so many advantages. One of the advantages that is increases enrollment of children to school. It also increases retention and also improve completion rate. So these are three major issues that were being challenged in Nigeria: poor enrollment, poor school retention, and getting much people out of this. You only have 100 students enrolled today. Probably you may end up with less than 60%. So you see, that is not good. Actually, so that is it's become an internationally accepted phenomenon of improving on indices of education. Well, for Nigeria, when it came, it was under humanitarian, as you rightly said. But just of recent, because Mr. President comes in with a lot of political will, and that political will to do things right is what we are getting now, that is assisting education. For example, taking 9 months to 11 months for you to process an application to get somebody appointed as a lecturer. By then he has gone to another country. That has been waived. The President said no. Just replace as soon as you go. Develop policy, ministry go and develop policy. So also the President looked at it critically and thought of that. The school children, school feeding, let it be with people that are handling students. And then he made the statement was that we are going to continue to manage the school feeding program. You see, as I said, his statement is one, but you also have to plan. Let's say right now what we are doing, have a strong committee that is working to look at what so far in the last years of implementation, where are the, using a SWOT analysis, what are the strengths of that program? What are the weaknesses? And what are the threats? And how can we now improve on that? So we are now developing a strong policy that will be all inclusive. And more or less that now it has been expanded. Also include even the out of school children that you can now integrate into basic education. So it means we must have a holistic approach. Not that really, yes, we are hoping money is coming, contract come, feed this up, feed that school, feed that school. That will not help us. We'll end up going back to where we were before. So we have to look at it critically. We must have check-in and then measures to prevent diversion and misappropriation. And also have a very strong MIE component that will ensure that, look, in terms of nutrient components, are we getting the right thing? Or are we just giving tea and leave them with the one sugar and then call it a decent? So these are all issues, because the essence is not only that. You see, if you have a strong school feeding problems, it will also tend to correct some certain malnutrition measures within that country that is addressing that effectively. I'm a medical doctor, but I know the component of nutrition and how it assesses in child development, especially the brain development. You understand? So how do we now do it in such a way that it can have impact?
Thank you very
and
much.
Students will now be retained in school.
Thank you very much.
So what I'm just trying to say is that as at today now, we are working to see how we can have a strong program that will have a strong MIE component. Just as I said, also that component will be given to non-governmental organizations so that it can also serve as a checklist. We have all Freedom of Information Act that allowed you to check in what is happening.
Thank you, Honorable Minister, for giving us better clarity to that issue. Now let's move on to Victor now. We're still looking at education for peace and sustainable development, and how can we enhance inclusive and multilingual education system to amplify social cohesion?
Thank you once again. when you talk about multilingual, obviously you're talking about people being bilingual and all that. Now, it's something we can factor in, maybe not at the primary level, but at the secondary level.
Okay.
Growing up, I went to public school, and I was taught French, for instance, as one of the foreign languages
yes.
to take. There are other options of Efik, Yoruba, Hausa, that you can take Igbo, you can add to French being the foreign, and then them other ones being local languages that you can take.
Yeah.
It's something we did in the past.
Yeah.
I do not understand or know at the point where we lost it. So yeah, we can revisit that and bring it back into the educational curricula to say, okay, look, we must do this to improve social cohesion. We also have, we still have anyway the NYSC program, and then the unity schools were also one of the factors that helped us to have that social cohesion that we're gradually losing. I mean, I had friends who went to school in Adamawa, in Sokoto, in Enugu, and all that. And then when we come back together, in those periods, you find that they pick the culture and local languages, and then you come into the NYSC scheme. You get sent to somewhere that you've never been to before.
Yeah.
I mean, I came to Abuja, for instance, as a youth corps member.
Okay.
From that point to now, I am still here. I've never left.
All right.
Yes, I came from Lagos for service here, but I've never left. I'm still here. We're talking about maybe 24, 25 years ago. Do you understand it?
Yeah.
So what you find is that these are schemes that help build us as a nation. We must strengthen this kind of thinking across all strata, because it will help. The other thing we also need to factor in is, as far as we talk about peace building and sustainable development, as we take these steps, we must primarily focus on developing the critical element of thinking in every single child. Why do we have issues of Boko Haram and banditry? Part of the problem is not just poverty, it's poor education.
Yeah.
And in some cases, completely non-existent education. An educated mind is very difficult to manipulate or to brainwash. So if a man is properly educated as he should be educated, you can't get him into going into crimes. And if he does go into crimes at all, not this kind of crime that we are having to deal with. So it's important that we look at how we educate our people. It's not enough to acquire knowledge.
Victor, I'm glad you brought this angle because we're also looking at education for sustainable development, and this implies imparting in our children across the different tiers of education the basic and necessary skills to deal with the needs of the 21st century. And we know that those needs cut across climate change, environmental factors, health factors, and all that. And the world is now looking at, artificial intelligence, robotics. I don't know if, again, like we talked about infrastructure, education is a public responsibility. Organizations, non-organizations like yours and Sule, I don't know what you're also, doing to assist government also to, introduce this even at the basic education level.
Okay, thank you. The first question is, how prepared are we as a people for the 21st century? Are we prepared for the AI world? We need to think about that. What is the plan for by our education managers in preparing our children for AI world? You go to our universities today, you have a child reading computer engineering or computer science, and you go to the computer lab, what do you have? 1640 computer systems. And this child is expected to graduate and come and compete with children from Europe and the Americas. How is that going to happen? So again, this brings us back to infrastructure development in the educational
How are you people filling the gap? That's where I'm asking. Because it's not just about government.
Yes, what we are doing as a private initiative is we work with school managers and give them basic information on how to go about this. And in some cases, we actually do donations of learning aids, modern learning aids. We should move away from blackboard to proper visual aids in learning, and that is one of the things we are doing. And that's why in Abuja, sometime earlier in the year, we called for the educational reform at the state level. Yes, at the state level in Abuja, where we did that. So it's important that other organizations and agencies of government also begin to think in these lines. Bring infrastructure that you can afford to primary education, to secondary education, and then in some cases to tertiary education. And as you do that, you find that you challenge government. Because if as a private initiative you're doing this, government will ask themselves, if these guys can do this, why is it that we cannot do this? So you see that we'll gradually begin to improve not just the thinking in education, but the infrastructural development in education.
Thank you very much, Victor. Thank you very much, Victor. We need to take
something here.
Honorable Minister, when we come back, from the break, let's take the break. When we come back, we continue the conversation. We take the break now. You're welcome back. You're still on to Good Morning Nigeria, coming to you on the network service of the NTA. And our discussion is still on education, peace, and for sustainable development. I will still have our guest here, the Honorable Minister for State Education, Victor and Abdullahi. Now, let me go straight to Abdullahi. Victor, one of the issues
Before I forget, I wanted to respond to what Mr. Victor said.
Okay, quickly.
Let me just commend his organization and many other NGOs that are doing wonderfully well in education and assisting us. But even we as ministry, we have not just looked at the issue of data and forget it just like that. If you look at the Nigerian Communication Commission's data that shows over 140 million Nigerians have access to phone. The ministry took it serious, and we also tried to use that leverage on technology to improve on our education. And that's why we come up with the concept of a digital resource center that is currently under the UBECA. This thing is in the Kado area, that is now going to be connected to 37 smart schools. And most of these smart schools, some of them have gone far in terms of this thing completion. We are just about, maybe before the end of February, we commission the Digital Resource Center. And those have smart boards. And they are well equipped with the modern technology that you can connect directly. One, it will help us as the issue of a global issue of teacher crisis, where you then have a lecturer that can teach or teacher that can teach physics. For example, a teacher at the resource center here can give a lecture that will also have virtual interaction with students over there in that smart school so that we can have communications. And these smart schools are all known in many states, though some few are yet to be added. So we are working hard to ensure that we have done that. Almost more than 60% of the states so far have had their own training. The next batch we are going to train that we're expecting from Sokoto government that will now bring about 75 teachers to Digital Resource Center where they can be trained on the functions of electronical functions of the smart board, other gadgets that we have there, which will also install in their own smart schools. This just you should see how we can work.
Are you also looking at, because some people have suggested at the basic level, for us to rejig the curriculum such that robotic and artificial intelligence are included at that basic level? Is this something we are considering?
You see, I wanted to mention issue of our work on curriculum. You said we are coming to that.
Yes. Because we don't have
when we come with so we are doing that. You see, let us be frank. Ours we have agreed. I cannot say it's obsolete curriculum, but it's outdated, and we are working towards that. For the past 14 years, curriculum has not been reviewed. And we'll all agree in the last 3 years, we have seen serious changes that warrant review of curriculum. And we as ministry, not only because we have a National Education Research and Development Council that is responsible for that, even as ministry, we made a budgetary line so that we can use it to support the research and the education, the curriculum development to ensure that at least 75% of the subject that are under primary, pre-primary, and basic education are reviewed within there. Okay. So these are all some of the issues that we have mentioned, and luckily for us, the funding will be there.
Okay.
So we have come with it. That's why I said the roadmap is something we can freely share it with anybody.
Okay.
So let it be used as a M&E tool to monitor the performance of the ministry.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Minister. Now, I was going to go to Abdullahi before the minister came in. Now, we were talking about AI, that is artificial intelligence. What are the benefits? Let's look at the benefits and the limitations, because we when the commercial was on, we're trying to look at the challenges as well. So what are the benefits and the limitations of AI in education, emphasizing responsible and ethical use of it?
Thank you, sir. I think even the international, the global community are battling with that. I did some studies, I had some reading on use of AI in developed countries, and how, if not checked, might be counterproductive. Yes. So I do not know if Nigeria is prepared for that. Look at the humongous challenges we have. AI is quite important. It enhances productivity. It reduces a lot of stress. We see a lot of issues coming up that AI would have resolved. Today I hear the FCT minister saying they do not have all they need equipment to tackle insecurity and banditry. I think for me that's a slap on the face for Nigeria, because we should have gone beyond that. That's a basic technology that we need. Therefore, I think we need to up our game with regards to use of AI. However, I do not think, just as he said, 40 years now down the line, our curriculum has not been reviewed. Quite a number of our members have raised those issues that it should be reviewed to reflect modern day issues, and AI is one of those things that should have that should come in. However, I do again see where even those people that have knowledge capacity in AI do not know where to deploy them, because they seem not to be user friendly within our context. The previous government in their designs of the alternate school program and I know we're giving out gadgets to the Almajiri and the out of school or the streets, and I know we also had an allo in a digital allo, where now they can use digital technology, rather write on those these things. It's a good step forward, but I don't know if that's sustainable, where you are grappling with issues of light. You cannot reach, you cannot
that's another major challenge.
You cannot charge them, and then you are also grappling with the issue of even getting a conducive learning environment so that you can sit down and learn how to use these things, and so people use them wrongly. And look at the situation in Nigeria, where we grapple with serious security issues. I see that AI might not at the moment help us positively, because it might end up in the hands of the wrong people. A lot of research is going on. I do not know if TED Fund has funding for that. I think we need to see how TED Fund can also help universities, because at that level, I think it's a welcome development. Many private universities are working towards that, and the sad story is that once people graduate, they leave the shores of Nigeria to other countries that find them useful. So there's a lot to be done around this area.
A lot to be done.
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry. Yeah. I won't. Victor said something the other time when he was talk about the issue of this critical thinking in schools, especially concerning students. Now, I want you to tell us, how can education system be redesigned to focus on critical thinking? How can we redesign it?
Yeah, thank you. I think
because it's important for peace and sustainable development.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why it's something that we must, as a nation, begin to think of how to address. One of the things we need to do is to reform the educational curricula. We should move away from 1 + 1 = 2 to the point where a child begins to question you as to why it is 2. That's the element of critical thinking.
That's critical thinking.
Yes.
And that's one of the approaches advocated by UNESCO.
That's correct. You understand? Because it's not enough to just tell me it's 2 and I go home and go to bed. I should be able to ask you, interrogate you as to why it is 2, because I can also tell you it's 4.
If you do that, the teachers will mark you down.
So this is how we need to reform the educational structure.
Which means that what you're saying now, we have to bring the teachers in as well.
Yes.
For them to be properly trained. To understand what critical thinking is all about.
Yes. That's why we talked about the matter of manpower development.
Okay.
The teacher must understand that he will be interrogated. He must be prepared for that interrogation. He must be prepared to provide answers to questions that will be raised.
Not in the Nigerian context.
But we
must begin to do that.
We have to
do that. But Victor, beyond your intervention, the private sector intervention in primary education, when you do take inventory of the needs at that level, what do you do? Do you also escalate to the tertiary education? Because at that level too, there's huge gap to be filled.
Yeah, okay. The reason we have the gap at the tertiary and secondary level is because we have a chasm at the primary level. That is what we must first bridge. Once we succeed in bridging that, you'd find that the gap we find in the secondary and the tertiary level will self-eliminate.
Okay, I'm sorry, because we're going to... Honorable Minister, my question is on the student loan scheme, and you will not leave here without answering it, because a lot of people have expressed some, reservations about the student loan scheme. Some say, oh, this might be another trader money. Some say, why is it restrictive of students in the public schools? Others say, how will students repay the loans? These are all matters that fall within your portfolio. How are you addressing this? And do you have even this? I mean, do we need an agency to implement this, or the way it is now, is implementation feasible?
Well, thank you very much. But let me respond to some few.
We have to do that in less than briefly.
Well, responding to me, I would just want to thank them also for their contribution in terms of the use of artificial intelligence and many other things they have
talked about.
Well, us as a ministry, we have agreed, and I admitted that our curriculum is almost outdated. Many other issues. But as far as we are concerned, we are working in hand with many other organizations. ICT, Ministry of Digital Economy, we have sat down, because we are promoting inter-ministerial collaboration. Just about 3 days ago or 4 days ago, I received the National Atomic Energy Commission. You see, atomic education or energy education is very vital. You can apply it in many different disciplines. But up till now, none of our university is doing anything to study atomic energy. So we have a collaboration between the DISN and NUC. Have already developed a curriculum which the ministry have directed. Everything must be done to release it in the shortest possible time. And we also advise them to see how we can regionalize the training for now, so that we can have the manpower that can go and take over and train others. So that not every school will have it, and then you end up having poor quality in terms of this. So these are issues. Now, when you now come to the student loan scheme, I think it's something that last week I was also in TBC. I spent almost 1 hour only on student loan scheme. But so to say, what is the fundamental aim of the Act is to improve access to tertiary education. Who are the beneficiaries? Beneficiaries are students within the public school that have secured admission and registered. Access, as at now, is open to all the students of public schools. They can access it. How do you access it? Just about 2 days ago, Mr. President unveiled the student loan scheme, and a website will soon be announced where students can go apply with all your necessary documents. Yes, we have also take cognizance of certain provisions within the Act that have made it nearly difficult. But that has also been addressed. Yesterday, the chairman of Federal Inland Revenue Services, the secretary of the committee of the student loan scheme, and his other staffs, we met in the office of the Minister of Education. I was also there, and we deliberated on all this. That is, we have a government that has an alignment, a very strong alignment, not a rubber stamp, but alignment between the National Assembly and the executive. And then it's something that we can easily go amend and then get it better. Putin, President being so diplomatic and approach to listening to the yearning and aspiration of Nigerians, took cognizance of all that. And then his own magnanimity, he said, not only tertiary education, skill is very important. So let us also expand it to people that will come and acquire skills. You see, this is also a very decent, because that's why I said our roadmap try to address. It's okay. Now, what are the issues? The issue is that you can be disqualified if you access and refuse to pay, or if your parent access and they refuse to pay. You see, you have to all be responsible. And when do you start paying? You start paying after 2 years. I wish. Just to summarize, you have to pay after two years. If you are employed, it's mandatory upon your employer to deduct 10% of your salary and remit it to the loan. If you are not working, you have to declare what is your profit within every month, and then you give 10% of that profit to the loan, so that we can send it. What is the source of funding? We have mentioned budgetary allocation. Big Two and many other NGOs can also donate to the board. Yes, to the board. You also have 1% from the mine, from petroleum taxes, and many other places.
I must interrupt you. Yes, Honorable Minister of State Education, Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sunono. We will invite you. We have a program that, of course, will give you opportunity to really expand on some of these initiatives.
Thank you very much.
Yes, Honorable Minister of Education, Honorable Minister of State for Education, Dr. Yusuf Tanko Sunono. Thank you very much. Victor Ikirigo, Executive Director, Green Stride Development Initiative. Thank you for what you and your partners are doing. We want to see more, like the Minister said, and of course, Abdullahi Saleh, FCT focal person and board member of Civil Society Action Coalition Forum for Education for All, and a political
institutional memory for world celebration.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. So let us quickly take a look at what's happening.
Because of the AFCON.
Yes, in the world of sports, it's AFCON period. So
next is news from the foreign scene.
Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi says his country and Russia are on a new brilliant page. He made a comment during a foundation-laying ceremony for Egypt's first nuclear plant. El Daba nuclear power plant will be built with Russia's State Nuclear Energy Corporation. Al-Sisi said during the ceremony that El Daba will represent another positive development in Russian and Egyptian relations. He referenced the global energy crisis and supply chain issues as reasons for reviving Egypt's peaceful nuclear program. Russian President Vladimir Putin emphasized his country's commitment to modern industries and bilateral cooperations. Putin also said he was in constant contact with the Egyptian leader Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. He also says Russia supported the desire of Egypt to become a full member of BRICS, the intergovernmental organization comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates. Israelis on Tuesday mourned and demanded answers over the army's biggest single-day losses since ground operations in Gaza started amid growing pressure on the government to end the conflict. The military says 21 of the 24 troops killed on Monday were reservists when a squad of terrorists surprised the force with fire from a rocket-propelled grenade. The army said the grenade hit a tank and 2 buildings they were trying to blow up. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says an investigation has been launched into the disaster and that Israel must learn the necessary lessons.
All right, that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. We thank you for joining us, and we will, of course, have you tomorrow, same time on the network service. I am Claire Adelabu Abdulrazak, and from all of us here, have a pleasant day.
And I am Ademola Adeoye. Thank you very much for watching. Do have a good day.